Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. So I uploaded the videos for last week in the web page. Has anybody of you had the opportunity to give it a look and see if it works?
Yeah, it works.
Okay, perfect. Great. So let's see. So this week we're gonna be we're gonna be taking a look at this subject, which is the air traffic management challenges, especially in the context of Europe. So let's give it a look. Okay, so before we start, does anybody of you have any questions about the course or about last week? Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's start with today's class. The same as last classes, we're gonna have a little break around 1 hour or so. Okay, so let's start. So this is the subject that we're going to be seeing today, and hopefully I will finish it next class in Thursday. So this is an outline of this topic. We are going to see what are the challenges in the future of ATM. We're going to focus on the European air traffic system. Then we're going to give it a look to what the single European sky is, what's the definition, why it was created, what is it useful for. Then we're going to see a little introduction on CESAR, which is the Single European Sky ATM research. And then we're going to see the performance and visions of CESAR. We're going to give a look at the future of the airspace system in Europe. We're going to see what are the essential operational changes that CESAR proposes. And finally, we're going to see how the solutions proposed by CESAR are going to be deployed in the future. So let's start with the challenges in the future of ATM. Of course, there are going to be new challenges in the future because we're going to have an increase in air traffic demand. And not only in traditional air traffic demand, we're going to also see an increase of unmanned aviation and different diversity in the air traffic demand in general. We're going to see new business models that are going to want to join the European airspace, and of course, this brings challenges with it, and of course, the sustainability issues. We don't. Of course, everybody's worried about the environment now. I've heard that in Sweden it's a particular hot topic, and I'm not sure if you guys are as environmental conscious as we think you are, but from our perspective, you guys in Sweden take a lot of care in the environment. Am I correct?
Well, we have something called flygskam. It's like, well, some people think it's a little bit shameful to fly because of the environment. But I don't think all people feel like that. But sure, there are people that think like that. So.
Okay.
But I'm not sure that there are a lot of people here that think so, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's normal that I think that because airspace, I mean, aviation is a very potent industry, and that's something that we need to acknowledge. So yeah, that's one of the challenges that in the future the technology is going to bring. So we cannot grow and grow and grow and attract more demand if that would mean that, yeah, basically destroying the environment. So that's one of the challenges that we're going to try to tackle. So we're going to see 3 important challenges, and of course you can think of as many as you can that are related to this. And essentially all comes to the growth both in air traffic and diversity and the consequences that it brings. So we're going to see a growth in air traffic demand, a growth in traffic diversity and the complexity of the traffic, and the environmental challenge. So let's start with the growth in air traffic demand. So this is over here is a study that Eurocontrol did, I think it was in, it's over here, in 2018, on the challenges of the growth in air traffic demand. Of course, this is pre-COVID, so the forecast has changed a little bit. We're going to see later how COVID-19 crisis has affected the forecast in traffic demand, but basically Eurocontrol has tried to forecast the traffic demand in the future and has seen how this will affect the capacity of the system and what kind of technologies we're going to have to adapt in order to accommodate that growth in demand. So according to this study, in 2035, we will have from 14.4 million to 15.2 million of flights in Europe alone. So that's a lot. In 2018, we had 11 million flights, but only considering instrument flight rules. We saw an increment from 2012 of 13%. So the growth in air traffic demand is apparent from last year's. So we can only expect that the demand for capacity will increase as well. And also we see that we have a lot of reasons to think that the air traffic will grow. For example, the expansion and building of airports, the rise in low-cost flights, and one important thing is the emergence of the Asian middle class and the rise on Europe of Asian markets. So this is going to change air traffic demand a lot. So according to this study made by Eurocontrol, this is the forecast that they envisioned. We have, this is the flights in Europe in millions from 1980s to the 2018, which was the year that the forecasts were made. So this is the, sorry? Oh, okay. So we've seen an increase in demand in air traffic. We have some crises here and there. So this is probably the financial crisis. And oh no,
this is like 2001.
Yeah, that will be 9/11 probably.
What's happened in 2000?
Sorry?
2008. What happened in 2008?
Can you repeat that, please?
What happened recently around
in here?
2010. Yeah.
Yeah, this will be the financial crisis of 2008. Probably. But even though we had seen some little crisis, this will be 9/11 and the financial crisis, but we'll see that little by little it will be increasing. So this is the forecast that Eurocontrol envisions. They have a wide range of forecasts depending on different scenarios. For example, the lower scenario would be something that they call the fragmented world, where countries will not be as eager as increased capacity as they could. There won't be a lot of global communication and efforts to build the future of ATM. This will be the second model that they envision is a middle one. They call it revolution and grow, where eventually they are catching up on capacity in the ATM with the collaboration of many countries and the provision of technologies, but always staying behind the traffic demand. And a global growth that could be the most the optimal scenario where countries are investing a lot on technology, and the industry is also investing a lot on technology in ATM, and there's a lot of global communication and in general a lot of economic growth. Of course, you can imagine that this over here is not the same if they were to do this study today, because this line over here is, I don't know, over here probably, because of the COVID-19 crisis. But either way, we know that eventually the air traffic demand will recover. So one can only imagine that these tendencies will eventually be true. With a growth in air traffic demand comes two big issues. Well, one big issue, which is the growing of capacity constraints. So as we saw last week, well, we talk about capacity in a sector and such, but in general, the ATM has a given capacity, both given by the capacity of ATS, of the air traffic services, and in that group would be included the capacity of ADC, and also the capacity of airports. So of course, airports have a given capacity, and those factors affect the capacity in general. So if that capacity is not increased and the levels of air traffic grow, we will have capacity constraints. So not all flights could be accommodated, and those that are going to suffer from delays and all kind of inefficiencies. So with growing capacity constraints come both delays and something that they call the capacity gap in airports. So for the delays, first, so far there are a lot of delays actually. I mean, right now, as it is, there is a target of half a minute per flight that has not been met since 2015, and this delay in traffic will only increase with the increase in capacity constraints. For example, Eurocontrol considers that in 2040, the number of flights that will be delayed by 1 or 2 hours will go up by a factor of 7. And this is quite a lot. And in here we can see some forecast for 2040 from challenges of growth and euro control, and they forecast a summer delay of 20 minutes per flight in average. That would mean a 63% increase of what we have today. And the other big thing that will come with this capacity constraint will be the capacity gap at airports. That could mean that some flights will not be able to be accommodated in the system because they won't have literally the airports won't have a spot for them. So they predict that in 2040, 1.5 million of flights will be accommodated, which will be the same as 160 million passengers unable to fly. And this is considering that this forecast has been done considering that the airport capacity will increase. So it's not considering that the airports stay the same. So even though airports increase their capacity at the level that is predicted to increase, they won't be able to manage this traffic, this growth in demand. So there we will have a capacity gap, as I said, of 1.5 million flights, and these little bubbles over here would mean these higher levels in the forecast. So this is the average that they predict, but it can be as high as 3.7 million flights unable to fly, and for the delays we can have a number as high as 45 minutes per flight in summer delays. So these are the two problems that come with capacity constraints. In here we have a forecast of the capacity gap. These are the three forecasts that they consider. This one where there is not so much growth. This is where there is medium growth, and in here we have a very high growth in air traffic demand. So the dotted line would be the demand, and the solid line would be the capacity forecast. So we will have a gap in here of 1.5 million flights and in here of 3.7 million flights. So if we can see that this the capacity and the demand will always be imbalanced. And this is for the delays. This is not a forecast. This is actual data from past years. So we had a target of half a minute for delays, and this has not been met, like in here, more or less, which was, so these years were very good in terms of air traffic delay. But we can see that these recent years, the bar has gone up. And in this information over here, we can see the different reasons why we have the delays. Some are not so foreseeable, like for example weather. We can have bad luck some years, but either way we can by predicting weather and by managing the integration of weather in air traffic management, we could decrease these delays. But what are important here are the capacity and staffing cost delays, which are the blue ones. And we can see that it's a significant portion of the delay are caused because of capacity issues. So if the capacity gap increases, if the capacity constraint increases, these delays caused by capacity will only increase. And this is what they're trying to show us here. So this is, I'm sorry, this is the the average delay per flight in minutes for several airports in Europe. In here, we saw that it was around 5 and 10 minutes, but we can see that in the future, in 2040, we'll have flight delays that will be as high as 30 minutes in some cases, or more than 20 minutes. So we can see that the average delay per flight will increase with these capacity constraints. And we have another information that the forecast give us, which is that we will have a number of 16 congested airports in the future. So a congested airport is an airport that is working at more than 80% capacity at all times. So, for example, the London airport could be, the Heathrow airport could be a good example of a congested airports. Airports that are always given their maximum, and they are always working at maximum capacity. So in the summer of 2016, we have 6 airports in Europe that were working at maximum capacity. But in the future, we will have a number as 16 or as high as 28. And again, I repeat, this is considering that the capacity in the airports is being increased as well. So of course, we have to do something to tackle these capacity constraints. And of course, we have the effects of the COVID-19. So all these scenarios are computed with, were computed in 2018. So of course, the effect of the COVID-19 of a crisis like that was not predicted. So this is the what the air traffic demand looked like during the pandemic. In blue, we can see the flights in 2018 before the pandemic. And in yellow, we can see the flights for this year. And in here, we have the percentage of decrease in flights. So we saw in April and the end of March and in April, which were like the worst, when most of Europe countries were closed because of the first wave of the pandemic, we had a decrease in flight demand of up to 87%, almost 90%, which was of course quite significant. We were like, these kind of numbers were never seen before in any other crisis in the air traffic system, and this continued for several weeks. And right now, this is practically obtained. So this is a report that Eurocontrol does like every week or so. So this is very recent. We see that as last week we had a 60% decrease in air traffic demand in Europe as compared to 2019, which is quite significant. And in here we have a graphic which shows how air traffic always recovers from crisis. We saw this at the beginning of this section, but we had around 2001, we have the 9/11 attacks, which decreased the air traffic demand a little bit. But after that, we saw that it increased, and at the end of 2008, around 2009, and over the next years, we had the financial crisis, which was another drop in air traffic. And as we can see, this could have effect in the following years, but eventually, again, the air traffic will was again recovered. And we had a number as high as 11.1 million flights in 2019. But of course, the COVID-19 came and we had levels basically zero and 90% in air traffic demand decrease. So here we can see how this crisis affected the air traffic. In the 9/11 terrorist attacks, we had a loss of 0.2 million flights, and it took 1.5 years to recover. In the financial crisis, we had 0.6 million flight loss, and it took 8 years to recover. And in the COVID-19 crisis, we've had 6 million flights lost. And the recovery from that, well, we don't know yet. So if these two crises caused this delay, these effects in the recovery for air traffic demand, you can imagine what the COVID-19 crisis will do in the following years. So they have a little forecast over here for the beginning for the following months. So this is what we saw in the other picture, but a little more simplified. Over here, the 88% demand decrease. And as of today, we will have a number around 64. So they have made two predictions for the following months. If we see an improvement on the management of the crisis over the following months, over the second quarter of 2021, we can expect to see a recovery of the air traffic around 55% by the end of May. But if we don't have as much improvement, we can only expect a 70% of air traffic reduction. So these numbers, either way, these numbers are quite low still. But yeah, these are the numbers that Aerocontrol is working with. And in here we can see a 5-year forecast. So they have set 3 different scenarios. In the first one, which is the best possible one, we will have a vaccine that's going to be delivered in 2021. And that's not that difficult to see because a lot of countries, the majority of European countries have already started vaccinations. And of course, all of them won't be able to be delivered during 2021, but we can expect something, we at least can expect the effects of the vaccine to take over the next year. So if a vaccine is ready for the summer of 2021, they predict this recovery of air traffic. So they predict that we will get levels of 2019 in 2024. So it would take 4 years for full recovery if we have a vaccine ready this year. If we don't have a vaccine ready this year, and we have it for next year, for 2022, they predict very nice growth still, but in 2024, we will not have achieved the level of air traffic as we had in 2019. And then we have another case, which is that the vaccine has no effect and people still don't want to fly. And we have that we won't achieve a recovery in 2024. Actually, we'll have a 75% of the flights that we had in 2019. So this forecast would be the worst case scenario. But yeah, everything is very uncertain right now, either because of the vaccine or because of all things we don't know about the pandemic. So think for 5 years to achieve a recovery and a level of flight that we had in 2019. So this forecast that we saw earlier, I would like to think of them as this portion over here have been displaced maybe 5 or 7 years in the future, something like that. So we will have a little drop over here and a recovery and then another growth. So eventually, I don't know if you agree with me, but eventually we will see this growth, even with crisis here and there, as we saw in here and here, and of course in 2020. But eventually we will have more demand. That's something that I think that we can all agree that will be the case. But yeah, I mean, the future of air traffic is a little bit uncertain. The trends show that the air traffic always recovers from crisis. So I think that we can say that we will recover from the COVID-19 crisis, and the air traffic demand will continue to grow. So yeah, this is what the demand in air traffic looks like. And I will repeat, we will have a big issue with the air traffic demand increase, which will be that the capacity will not be able to follow, and we will have a huge imbalance between demand and capacity, and this will cause both delays in flights and also people that won't be able to fly due to capacity constraints in airports. So I see that we have a question. Aren't there any worse scenario? I guess so. Yeah, I mean, this is what Eurocontrol has predicted with the data that we have today, and I mean that we can always consider that worse things happen. Like, I don't know, like the economy goes very bad after the pandemic, or we have another variant of the virus. I don't know. Hopefully not. We won't have a worse scenario than that. But yeah, you can always have room to be pessimistic, I guess. If you want to see more information about the effects of the virus and the air traffic, so Eurocontrol has a nice web page when they post reports every week, and they have an analysis of everything. So if you Google, I mean, I have it in the bibliography at the end, but if you Google Eurocontrol COVID-19, they have a page that they update like every week with the air traffic, the difference from last year's, and the different. So this graphic over here, they are always updating, and they have a lot of information that you can give it a look if you want to be depressed a little. Okay, so we have seen the growth in air traffic demand. Let's go back 1 second. So we have seen a growth in air traffic demand. So we're going to see now what we're going to see in the future in terms of traffic diversity and traffic complexity. Okay, so we're going to see a lot of new players in air traffic, and they will come in different types of new vehicles. And the more important that we are going to see increasing in the following years is drones. So drones are going to be operated mostly in very low level airspace. That means below 1,050 meters. And they will come from very different reasons, like the use of on different industries, used for safety or security, or used by entertainment for everyday people. So we will see an increase in this kind of traffic, and we're seeing it right now, but in the following years, this will be something that the air traffic management system will have to address. So in this figure over here, we can see a forecast for the number of flights in 2050. In the very low level airspace, so this will be protected sites, will mean airports, so not in the vicinity of airports or important sites, but for example, in urban areas, we will have a number of hours of flights of this kind of drones of 2050 million hours, or use in rural areas or remote infrastructure. We will have a number of 20 million hours flight by this kind of new players, this kind of drones. And also for leisure, we will have 80 million hours flight, or their equivalent in kilometers. And then over this very low level airspace, we will also have different different players. Of course, we will still have our traditional aviation, but we will have also the presence of unmanned aviation in those areas as well. And also we will have other kind of players that will fly in very high altitudes, which will be the super high altitude operations that will be both manned aviation and unmanned aviation. But in general, we are going to see an increase in density and diversity in, as I say, both in the very low level airspace, that will be a significant difference from what we have today, and in the controlled and uncontrolled airspace. So another thing that will come to with the presence of this kind of new traffic will be that all these new interactions, all these new operations will not always be carried out by humans, but we will also will see an increase of machine operated aircraft, or for example, the presence of single pilot operations. So we will have more automation in the aircraft, and also operations that are fully automated without the presence of humans. So we'll not only will have more density and more diversity, but also we will have another player that won't be human, that will be the presence of automation. So as you can imagine, this will cause, this is something that can only be achieved, can only be accommodated through the implementation of new technology, new legislations, and a new concept for aircraft operations in order to accommodate these new flights, this new demand for new business, and to do so in a safe way as well. So we will see, as I said, a demand for the access of lower level airspace, this airspace over here. It will come from the demand for leisure, inspection and data operations, public safety and security purposes, deliveries, and urban air traffic mobility. So two implications will come with this growth in air traffic diversity and complexity. First, so if we carry with the same productivity levels, with the same capacity level, this managing this level of air traffic will be impossible. So we'll have to incorporate new technologies and new legislations, and of course, increase capacity and new systems. And the second implication would be that increased traffic levels and new form on traffic, including military traffic and remote. I forgot what the P in AirPass means. Remote. Do you? Anybody of you remember? I'm sorry. Remote pilot. Okay, remote pilot aircraft systems. So these new levels of air traffic and this new form of traffic will have diverse communication technologies, speed pattern, etc., that will require further automation, further connectivity, and further interoperability. So, as I said, we need new technologies and new procedures to accommodate this kind of new traffic. So this is a forecast for the use of drones in the future of Europe. This was a study that was done in 2016. We have a forecast for 2025, 2035, and finally 2050. And we can see an increase in drone activity for the military, the government and commercial purposes, and for leisure. So drones, we will see a steady growth. So we will see that new missions will offer opportunity for this kind of air traffic. For the government and commercial pool, we will see a very high increase in the following years, with a steady increase in later years. And finally, for leisure activities, we can see that the number of drones will be significantly high. So this is in thousands of flights. So thousands of drones. So we can see that it expected that very soon the number of drones circulating will be over 7 million of them. So this is a forecast for the drone demand, depending of the type of mission. So all these forecasts are coming from this study that was done, as I said, in 2016. And we can see that there will be an increase in general for all kinds of different missions. So the different missions that we have here are unmanned aviation. We can see, so this unmanned aviation could mean completely automatic. We can see that this is very little in comparison with other ones. Then we will have BVLOEs means beyond visual line of sight. So visual line of sight is always set as, I think, 150 meters or so. So these are kind of operations where the pilot does not physically see the drone itself, but it's operating it remotely with some kind of camera or something like that. But it's not at the same place as the pilot. So the most important ones, the most important kind of operations will be beyond visual line of sight with light load. So for delivery purposes, for example, and cargo purposes. Then we have surveillance and surveillance, but with visual line of sight. This will be three more important kind of missions. And in here we can see the demand of the industry, the demand of drones by industry domain. So we can see that an important one would be the use for agriculture. We can see this is in activity in thousands of flights. So in 2050, we will have, for agriculture alone, over 140,000 flights for agriculture. Then we'll have energy, public safety and security, delivery, mobility, and other kind of activities. So that's all for the inclusion of new aircraft, especially drones, remotely pilot aircraft, and other kind of new players in the ATM. And as I said, it's very important that new technology, new levels of automation are able to capture this kind of air traffic, because otherwise we want to be able to accommodate it in the system. And finally, we will have the environmental challenge. So the growth in air traffic, both for the traditional air traffic and this new air traffic, of course, will carry more, will carry a lot of benefits. For example, benefits in terms of mobility, connectivity, and new business opportunities and services. But this growth represents a significant environmental challenge. So in here, there was a report that was done by the European Environment Agency in 2019. You can find it in this page over here. So in this, this is a very nice report of the effects of aviation in the environment. So if you want to give it a look, I think it's very very illustrative. So the European Union agreed in something that they call the 2050 low carbon economy, which had the following targets: a 60% cut in greenhouse emissions by 2040 with respect to 1990 levels, and an 80% cut in greenhouse emissions by 2050, including a 60% reduction in transport. These levels are very ambitious, I would say, but well, we can always set goals into the future and then see if we meet them or not. I don't know if we are on the path of meeting these goals, but we will see. But either way, in particular in the ATM, what we can do is to eliminate environmental inefficiencies caused by the aviation infrastructure. So by doing the ATM system more efficient, we will decrease the need for flying longer paths or flying ineffective trajectories that in general we have an environmental print. So by doing air traffic operations more efficient, we will have and decrease the environmental challenge. So there are several impacts that the aviation has over the environment. So the first one is the noise. We can differentiate two major impacts, which is the noise and the emission of, well, the presence of gas emissions. So in terms of noise, we see that long-term exposure to aircraft noise is linked with a lot of health impacts, including heart disease, sleep disturbance, annoyance, and cognitive impairment. And in general, the level of annoyance reported by residents that live close of airports was shown that was greater, that was caused by other kind of transport sources. So in particular, aircraft noise is very disruptive for people. And of course, the pollutants emitted by aviation influence the air quality, and they have a given number of health effects. they're actually working on seeing what these health effects are, and in particular for some kind of particles that are present in the emissions of aviation. So, but this is an ongoing research, how these pollutants affect the health of humans. But in general, we can so the community agrees that in general the emissions do affect the air quality. And then we have, of course, the emissions of how do you call this in English? Gases with warming effect. I don't know what the correct word is right now, but they contribute to climate change and all, which are, of course, the CO2 and other CO2 non-CO2 emissions. For example, nitrogen. I'm sorry, I don't know the name of this one in English. Oxide nitrate or something like that. But basically, these two emissions will have an effect on climate change right now and in the future. So this is what the emissions of a typical two-engine aircraft look like for an hour and 150 passenger. It consumes 2,700 kilograms of fuel, and it emits up to 8,500 kilograms of CO2 and 30 kilos of nitrogen oxide. That was the word. So for just 1 hour, we can see how high these emissions are and how much fuel does it have to consume. So this is a forecast emissions and also a tracking for the emissions of aviation in Europe in millions of tons of CO2. This is in this dotted line over here. It's the one computed by the European Environment Agency, and we have in the 1990s we had that the flights in Europe emitted 88 million tons of CO2, and it in 2016 it was more than double that, with 181 million tons of CO2. Of course, we have a lot of more traffic that we had in the 90s. So in general, the efficiency has increased, but it was not enough to maintain the levels of emissions, and we see an increasing trend of the emissions, almost like following the increase, the trend in air traffic demand. So this is computed by the European Environmental Agency, and this is with another model, I think, which is called impact. It's a little less, but in gray over here we can see the impact, but with the effects of something that the European Union has, which is the emission trading system. I don't know if you have heard of this, but the emission trading system was a project that I don't know if it's still going, but basically each industry in Europe would have an allowance of emissions that they can emit, and they can pay other industries or other sectors to borrow emissions, so to say. So those other sectors won't use those emissions. So in general, the number of emissions had a boundary. So this is with the effects of that. Apparently, as 30 million tons of CO2 were reduced with the system. I don't know if it's of any use, but I'm hearing that it's not very effective. Emissions, right? Sorry, Marcus, can you elaborate on your question? Yeah, I think, well, I think so. Maybe you will know more than me. Is this concept where every sector has an allowance for emissions, and they can borrow from one another, but always below a limit. Maybe that's the same. So it's called emission rights trading. I don't know. I mean, I don't know much about the system, but it's supposed to reduce the number of emissions in general. Okay. Well, I don't know if that's effective or not. Call me pessimistic, but I don't see how that is helping. So there's another project over there similar to ATS, but I think it makes more sense. And look, let me look at the name because I don't remember exactly. It's something like 1 second. Let me see. Give me a second. I'm sorry, I don't have it in here right now. Maybe after the break, I can give you the name. But it was a project, basically, I don't remember the name right now, but in this project over here, so at the different players in aviation will have a limit for the emissions. And if they wanted to consume, to emit more than that, they will have to invest in projects that will contribute to the sustainability of energy in other communities, in particular in less developed communities. So I think that's a project that's very nice. So, okay, you want to emit more CO2, well, you have to invest in this kind of clean energies for different type of communities. So I don't remember the name right now, but of course it doesn't decrease the number of emissions per se, but it helps to a general, so it leads to a more sustainable energy system in those communities. So I guess we have some kind of benefit from that. I will leave you the name. I will tell you the name later when I find it. I don't remember the name of that project. But yeah, basically, if you want to emit more, you have to invest in cleaner energies in some place, or not only cleaner energies, but any kind of project that contributes to the sustainability and the protection of the environment. So in this forecast, we can see that we have an increase in emissions. We have a low traffic forecast, a base traffic forecast, and a high traffic forecast. Actually, with the low traffic forecast, we see a decrease in emissions, but I don't know how these forecasts were made. But in general, we can assume that if the air traffic is going to increase, the number of emissions can increase. So the aircraft will have to be very efficient for this number to stay the same. And one important data over here is that the European aviation presented the 20% of global aviation CO2 emissions in 2015. It doesn't look 20%, yeah, it kind of makes sense. And we have a forecast for the noise, and we can see that the effect of the noise in 47 densely populated airports in Europe kind of stay the same, but has increased in the recent years. And if the use of these airports is going to increase in the future, of course, we will have more noise. But the forecast over here is not as bad, I would say, as the emissions one. But still, noise can be detrimental to health, as we saw earlier. So that's something that the future of aviation will have to look at. And finally, climate change. So climate change is a risk to aviation because it will affect infrastructure, the patterns of demands, and also the daily operation. So we can see several climate effects that will change with the coming of climate change eventually, on how they affect aviation. So, for example, we will have that increase in temperature. This will affect the aircraft performance. Also will affect the seasonal and geographical changes in tourism demand pattern, and can also cause heat damage to infrastructure. Then we have changes in rain and snow patterns. We will have, in general, less snow, but heavier events. We will also have less rain in the south and more in the north, and more heavily rainfall events. This will lead to delays and flight cancellation, flooding in airports and access routes, and we will have to devise new snow clearance needs, and so this will change. Then we have changes to storm patterns. We will have more uncertainty in the climate modeling, and we will have an increase in the frequency of storms and damage in storms. This will mean, of course, delays, rerouting, and increased fuel burn. We will have also loss of en route capacity, and the fact that convective weather will affect multiple airports simultaneously. Then, of course, we have the rise in sea levels that will happen over long term. And this would mean the permanent or temporary loss of aircraft capacity and infrastructure, and the network disruption. And finally, we have changes to wind patterns. So we have the change in the jet stream strength, the position and curvature. I don't know if you know what the jet stream is, but basically it's a current of wind, yeah, that's going in the north of the Atlantic Ocean, and it's a route that allows the aircraft to fly over those winds, and in order to lower the times for them to fly over the ocean. Let me see if I can find a picture of that. You probably have heard what it is already, but either way, the stream. One second. Yeah, so basically it's a current of air that goes eastwise. So aircraft can fly over this jet stream and have wind from the back. So they will reach higher ground speeds than if they were flying other kind of routes. So we can use this jet stream to fly over the ocean, and for flights from the US to Europe with quite efficiency. extreme aviation. Well, let's go back to the presentation. So yeah, basically with the presence of new wind patterns, this could change. So we will not be able to use this kind of fighters maybe anymore. Are we again in the presentation? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Then we will have shifts in prevailing wind direction, which can mean that the airports will not be as efficient. I don't know if you know this, but airports are built. I mean, airports runways are built in a way that they are more efficient regarding the prevailing wind direction. So if this wind direction changes, these runways won't be as efficient. And we will also have increasing extreme wind speeds. This will mean an increase in clear air turbulence, the variability in transatlantic times and routes, crosswind changes affecting airport capacity and operational disruptions. So not only is aviation contributing to gases emissions that are contributing to climate change, but also it will be affected by the effects of this climate change. So we will need to adapt to these new changes that eventually will happen if we continue. I mean, not only if we continue with this trend, some people say that's almost irreversible at this point. So we will have to live with these new weather and climate effects that will disrupt the aviation in general. Okay, so this is all for the challenges. We're gonna have a little break now. That was a lot, I would say. Do you have any questions so far? Okay, perfect. So we're gonna have a little break until 4:30, if you want. 10 minutes, okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, well,
Yep.
see you in 10 minutes then. Okay. Let me check. I don't think I have done anything different, but either way, I'm gonna post the link to the video over here in the chat. Let me know if you can access it, okay? So it was for the first class. Okay, so this is the link for the video. Let me know if you can see it, and I will check over the web page if there's something wrong or I have to. I mean, let me know if you can see it right now.
Yeah, I could see it.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I will take it a look. So to see if there was something wrong. Okay, I hope we are back by now. So this is the project I was trying to remember the name before. It's called CORSIA, which is the Carbon Offsetting and Reduction Scheme for International Aviation. And basically, it's based on the offsetting of CO2 emissions. So airlines have to report their emissions, and they will need to invest in offsetting projects if they go over a given number of CO2 emissions. So, for example, it says here that an offsetting is an action by a company or individual to compensate for the emissions by financing a reduction of emissions elsewhere. These offsets can be sources from various types of activity, for example, wind energy, clean cooking stoves. So yeah, some things like that, projects that are better for the environment, I guess. So an important thing is that airlines have to report their emissions, and they might be they may have to participate in some kind of CO2 offsetting. Yeah, so this is the project I was trying to remember before. This is similar to the emission trading system in the sense that it doesn't really lower the emissions of aviation, but it tries to do something to make it better. At least it's something. Yeah, so let's go back to the presentation. So we tackle the challenges in the future of ATM, which are three big ones. First, the increase in demand, which will lead to a constraint in capacity. Then we have an increasing air traffic diversity and complexity, which will mean that we will have to include new technologies, more automation, and different procedures to accommodate these new flights. And the third big challenge was the environment. So we need to take into account the emissions and the noise that the aircraft make, and consider that they are going to, if the air traffic demand is going to grow and the number of traffic is going to grow, these emissions and these environmental impacts are going to grow as well. And also we have to take into account that climate change will affect aviation. Okay, so these are the challenges. So how are we going to tackle this challenge, particularly in Europe, where there is something called the Single European Sky and the Single European Sky ATM research. So the Single European Sky is an initiative launched by the European Commission in 2004 to reform the architecture of the European ATM. The objectives were to restructure the European airspace as a function of air traffic flows, to create additional capacity, and to increase the overall efficiency of the ATM system. The European Commission in 2005 said something that are called the Single European Sky high-level goals. So this is what the Single European Sky aims to achieve in the long run. These high-level goals are to enable a threefold increase in capacity, which will reduce delays in both the ground and the air, improve safety by a factor of 10, enable a 10% reduction in the effects flight have on the environment, and provide ATM service to the airspace users at a cost of 50% less. So more capacity, more safety, less environmental impact, and cheaper services. Of course, these are very ambitious goals, and these are long-term goals. So this is an ideal we will like to achieve, but of course we are not close to this. So what does the singular European sky means in terms of legislation? So basically, the single European sky comes as a legislative package, which takes the form of two different packages. A first package which was adopted in 2004, and a second package that was adopted in 2009. So the first package was adopted by the European Parliament and Council in March of 2004 and entered into force 1 month later. So the first package has 4 basic regulations. So if you want to look them up, are these 4. First, on the creation of the single European sky. The second one on the provision of an ANS, of air navigation systems. Third, on the use and organization of airspace. And the fourth one in the interoperability of the European Air Traffic Management Network. This is the 4 basic legislations that were part of legislative package 1, and for legislative package 2 was adopted in 2009 and are basically amendments to this one, to these 4 legislations, but these amendments were done in terms of the present air traffic demands, the conditions of the ATM system in 2009. So it was called the legislation in order to improve the performance and sustainability of the European aviation system. But it's important to know that these are laws adopted by the European Parliament, because this means that that's something that Europe is actively working on. They are not just good intentions, they are not just ideals, but they are there in the legislation and countries must comply to them. So this is something very beneficial for ATM and impulses a lot of new projects, technologies, funding opportunities, because this reflects a real commitment of the European Union on the development of a better ATM system. So yeah, we have, as I said, 2 packages. One important part of the single European sky is actually implied in its name. It's reduce the fragmentation of the European airspace. The single European sky have a lot of initiatives towards meeting this goal of reducing the fragmentation of the European airspace. And some of these initiatives were the implementation of functional airspace blocks, which means so a functional airspace block is an airspace that's based on operational requirements rather than the boundaries of a given country. And right now in Europe, there are 9 of them, instead of the dozens of them that were in the past that correspond to the national boundaries. So the idea of the functional airspace block is that air navigation service providers will give air navigation services in a more efficient way inside these blocks. And eventually, I mean, this initiative was finally adopted in 2012, but for what I know, it was not as efficient as they thought it would be, because there's still a lot of there's still not a lot of interchangeable resources from one country to another. So even though these blocks are defined, they are not as efficient as they were intended to be. So more the fragmentation needs to be done in the European airspace. Another initiative that we talked about was the flexible use of airspace. We talked about that last week, but this is an initiative of the Single European Sky as well. Then we have the network manager, that we saw also last week, which was also an initiative of the consequence of the implementation of the Single European Sky. And finally, we have the creation of an European upper flight information region. So there is a project to unite all the upper flight information regions in the European airspace. So we can then reduce the fragmentation of that upper airspace. This is a project still. Well, that's the future. I mean, that's what the Single European Sky is working for, to have one single block. But I don't know. Can you think of any reason why this cannot be possible right now?
No, it seems like it could be possible.
I mean, of course, it could be possible, but one thing that comes to mind, for example, is the delivery of certificates, for example, for imagine air traffic controllers. So one air traffic controller is going to control a region of their airspace, but does that air traffic controller will have the liberty to go, for example, to another country with the same legislation? That's something that is not happening right now. So that's an example of a barrier that implies that that is not allowing this single block. For example, we have different quality in air system. Yeah, also that kind of thing. So as we mentioned last week, the states are responsible for having air navigation systems in their area. So yeah, there will have to exist an interoperability between those between the countries to be able to use the different air navigation services. And also, who is responsible for maintaining those services and those kind of technology? Who is responsible for the certification and for building and for the maintenance of those? So right now there's a lot of the fragmentations, basically because we have different countries that are not always so eager to collaborate between each other. But actually, the existence of a one single block would be the ideal. In the future of the Single European Sky, we will have a single airspace where the air navigation services will be provided to everyone, independent of where they are, and they will not be these boundaries where the aircraft must be put through. Like, for example, one thing that will be similar to one single block is the thing what the United States has right now. They just have the airspace in the US, right? So in that term, if you see comparisons between the efficiency in the airspace of the United States in comparison with Europe, we can see that the the air traffic in the United States is actually more efficient because they don't have all those different interconnections between different countries. This kind of coordination is not needed because it's one single block for one single country. So that's something that eventually Europe will have to accomplish some way or another. So yeah, basically, little by little, they are trying to reach this one single globe, this single European sky, and that's the goal. But yeah, basically, the communication and the policies of each country is what getting in the middle, so to speak. So this is some of the goals that, some of the initiatives that will reduce the fragmentation on the European airspace. And yeah, the objective is to have a more efficient airspace in the whole Europe, have more capacity, etc., etc. So how are we going to accomplish the single European sky view? Well, there is something called the Single European Sky ATM research, which is CESAR. So CESAR is the technological pillar of the Single European Sky initiative. It is broken into 3 phases, which are the definition, the development, and the deployment. These 3 phases started. The definition phase started in 2004. The deployment phase started in 2007, and the deployment state started in 2014. And the development phase, or research and development phase, is organized as a program. So there was a program that has already ended, which was the CESAR-1 program. It was closed in the end of 2016, and right now we are working with the CESAR 2020 program. So the different phases of the Single European Sky ATM research are definition, development, and deployment. So the first one is definition phase. Basically, in this phase, the vision of the objectives of CESAR are defined. And the conclusion of this phase is the European ATM Master Plan. So the European ATM Master Plan has what the future of ATM will look like, as seen as CESAR and as seen at the Single European Sky project, and also what are the steps toward meeting this vision, toward meeting these goals. So this European Master Plan is revision every now and then. So the first European Air Traffic Management Master Plan was issued in 2009 with the creation of, well, not only the creation, but after the creation of CESAR, we had a second edition that was in 2012. We have a third edition in 2015, and the edition that is currently up, and that is currently the European view for the ATM, is the edition of 2020. And in this European ATM Master Plan, we have basically what the objectives of the ATM in Europe are for the near future. Then we have the development phase, and the development phase is carried by the CESAR joint undertaking. The CESAR joint undertaking was established in 2007 and is responsible for research and development requirement for the modernization of the ATM system by coordinating and concentrating all relevant efforts in the European Union. It is a public-private partnership between the founding members of CESAR, which are the European Union and Eurocontrol, and all the industrial ATM stakeholders. So basically, it's a partnership, an organization that is responsible for the research and development of CESAR. And the output of this phase of the development are what we call CESAR solutions. They are new or improved operational procedures or technologies that aim to contribute to the modernization of the European and global ATM system. So we have in here the definition, which is basically what the ATM needs and what CESAR thinks the future of ATM in Europe will look like. Then we have the CESAR joint undertaking, which is a group of interested parties, in particular the European Union, Eurocontrol, and other stakeholders, in order to develop research and development activities and to provide CESAR solutions that will give a response to those needs that were established in the European Master Plan. And finally, we have the development phase, which is under the responsibility of the CESAR deployment manager, which was developed was created in 2014. So the CESAR deployment manager is responsible for the management of the CESAR deployment phase. And it's responsible for the coordination of the implementation of most essential CESAR operational improvements through the concept of a common project. So a common project is an extraction from the European ATM Master Plan and is based on mature CESAR solutions. This is solutions that are proven to be able to give proven to be beneficial to the ATM and that are much mature enough to be deployed. So these mature CESAR solutions are under the CESAR deployment manager are deployed in a synchronized and timely manner across Europe, translated into an European law. So whilst the European ATM Master Plan is indicative, a common project binds the member states of the European Union and their operational stakeholders. So the European ATM Master Plan give us an idea of what the ATM needs, but something that's in the air, so to say. I mean, it's in paper, but it's not tangible. But when CESAR solutions or CESAR projects are in development, they have a real weight in the sense that they are actual projects that are being funded and that they are going to be implemented and deployed and are going to give real value to the ATM. So this part is like the objective, so to say, because the other two are essential in the sense that we have to establish what we need, we have to do research and development, but in the end, the deployment phase is what is going to be to bring us benefits, is what we're going to be using in the real ATM system. So yeah, these are the three main phases. As I said, definition, development, and deployment. So what we're going to see from now on in this, in maybe not this class because it's almost 5, but next class, is what's inside the European ATM Master Plan. Because basically it has all the visions of CESAR, all the initiatives and solutions that are going to be needed in the future of ATM in Europe. So most of the content that we're going to see during this presentation, maybe next class, will be taken from this document over here. So yeah, this is Cesar. These are the 3 phases, and I think we're going to end the class here, because in the 3 minutes that we have left, I don't think it's enough time to start talking about the Cesar vision. So yeah, if you have any questions, that this would be a good time to ask. And
I have a question.
yeah.
It's about the single European sky, because if could you go to the map with the blocks again? Maybe. So there are some countries like Norway, Switzerland, and that aren't, and the UK that aren't in the European Union, but they are in the bloc. But there are other countries like Iceland that that they aren't in the European Union either, but they aren't in the bloc. So it seems like there are some Euro countries that are in the bloc that aren't members of the EU. Do you know why? Or
So basically, these are members of Eurocontrol. So not everyone is member of the EU or vice versa.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, all the also it's we saw the other week that there's something called the ACAC, the European Community Aviation Conference. So all the countries that are members of that conference are members of Eurocontrol, and that are all the countries that are members that are subscribed to the Single European Sky legislation. Let me see if I have a list of all the countries that are members of Eurocontrol. I think I have a nice list of flags somewhere. Maybe in the COVID-19 thing, there was something. Nope. But if not,
it's okay. It isn't so necessary for me. So.
Okay. Yeah, but basically those countries that are in Eurocontrol. So yeah, any other? No, not over here either. So any other questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah.
You said last class that you were going to introduce the first homework in this class.
Yeah, well, my intention is to introduce it at the end of next class, when we have seen all these points.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So what I will do is so next class I will try to finish these points over here, and I mean, if I don't time to finish the whole thing, either way, I will have like 15 minutes at the end of next class to talk about the first homework. So don't worry about that too much.
Okay,
perfect. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming to the class again. I will see you on Thursday.
Bye.
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 Bye.